So, welcome back, everybody. So, today is going to be a heartfelt episode of Sisterhood Smarts. And we're going to be discussing the profound impact of a father's love and how it can guide you through, for lack of better words, some of the darkest moments of grief. Okay. And joining us is our smart sister, Sara, who is going to be sharing her personal journey of loss and healing after the passing of her father. So, welcome to Sisterhood Smart, Sara. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. And it's a pleasure being here and looking forward to the conversation. Like you said, it's going to be a heartfelt conversation, but I hope we get through it.
Yes. I must add that as we dive into today's conversation, I want all our listeners to at least put it at somewhere, at the back of their mind that we have been friends for a very, very long time. Okay, this is a smart sister, but she's also a very good friend. And so we might have moments where we have hidden jokes, some hidden humor that you may not understand because we over here at Sisterhood Smarts, we understand how deeply sensitive the topic is. And we also understand the very, very close relationship Sara had with her father. Okay, they shared a special bond. And so we do already have that background going into this conversation, okay? And so, Sara, to lay the foundation, I know it's what you're about to share today is a lot of bravery and just taking a lot to get here. Yeah, and we're also glad that you have been able to candidly share your story. And you have been working to help people who are going through this journey, through the healing journey, through coping with grief. And so I think this is a very, very important topic. And so before we dive into the main topic of today, perhaps we can share a little about your father and the relationship you had with him, just to lay the before we dive in.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And remember, as you talk throughout the conversation, just feel free to share whatever feels comfortable to you.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. So he was an educator, loved to teach. That was really a passion, a calling. There are those, and I say sometimes, I hope it's not the same, where you are. You have a teacher and you're like, I think they're in the wrong vocation, but he was in the right vocation. He loved to teach. He loved to empower children. He was always so excited whenever, a student that he had taught he was doing great in high school or campus or even at the workplace. So that was him, your number one fan, irrespective of the fact that he was my number one fan as my father. He was also the number one fan for the students. I mean, that was truly him and, heartfelt. And I know a lot of people, classmates, friends, used to ask me, how do you live with him? Because, I mean, in school, he was strict. He was so strict. And they're like, I mean, Monday to Monday, how do you live with, that dude in the same house? And, the craziest thing, my faith was, he was the coolest dad ever. Like, seriously, his strictness ended at the door. Once he walked into the house, he was a father and created this wonderful atmosphere that, in the end, he became my rock, my confidant, my go-to person. you know, um, and we would even share, jokes in the middle of the day. I mean, he would call me up and it's like, "Oh, by the way, have you heard?" And then it's like, "Okay, go back to work." I mean, that was him. Yeah, truly amazing. Yeah, in a nutshell. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's the thing, we talk about people fitting, wearing many shoes.
Mm-hmm.
We know that people, we have all mastered the art of this personality is me at the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
This is me as
Exactly.
a father. This is me as this and this. And actually, we talk a little bit about this in my previous conversation with Dr. Ayu,
Okay.
because we talk about authenticity and how
Mm-hmm.
society, we've been socialized that you cannot be yourself in its entirety,
Mm-hmm.
depending on what kind of profession you have or network you have or spaces you have. And so people are constantly wearing many shoes. And that's why, you find Sarah, somebody talks about your dad and you're like, I don't recognize who they're talking
I
about.
know,
We
right?
have experienced this even with our friendship. People might be
Yeah.
like, Sarah is not really, she's so serious. And I'm like, okay, good luck. You know what I mean? We know people through such a different lens. And that's why
Yeah.
when people say things, I'm just like, your friend, as you know your
Yeah.
friend. Let's just keep it
Yeah.
that way.
I know, right?
Yeah, it's so nice that you have, you've touched that part of
Mm-hmm.
our, I don't want to say our human experience, but our collective
Yeah.
experience and our collective
Exactly.
agreements, that
Yeah.
this is how you behave as a principal. Can you imagine not being strict in a Kenyan school
Oh man,
as a
the school would
principal?
run amok, or the students would run amok. I don't even know, and everyone would just fail the exams. I mean, it would be crazy.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, and then you can imagine the parents thereafter. They'll be like, "What are you doing? We've brought our children to have an education, but I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah."
Yeah, because Kenyan students will test you. You will be tested and tried by force and fire.
They will test you and they will test the system. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
you notice when looking back, we love those teachers, the ones who are really like pushing you to the limits. Those are
I
the ones
know,
we
right?
remember. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, right? And it's so funny that you mentioned this. Somebody just commented on one of my Facebook posts how it was so funny. She both liked and disliked dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought that was so funny. But I understand where she's coming from because,
Yeah.
like I said, as a principal, he was very strict. I mean, it's A. You can't tell me that A has become B. How? But outside of that, when you found him in a different setting, for example, if you found him when we had our sports day or our swimming gala, you'd be like, is that really the head teacher? Because now he's completely father and he's cheering for us as his children, He's completely forgotten that even sometimes that he had a guest of honor because he's got to cheer for his kids, right? So,
Yeah, I'm sure
yeah,
someone was there like, hey, dude, you got to get back
I
in
know,
one,
right?
get back in form.
you know
Yeah.
so yeah, so I got her when she said that she both liked and disliked him, but what I appreciated after that is the fact that she said the values that she learned from him is what she carries with her and is what really makes her appreciate him more, and is what is the reason why she really likes him, because she realized that what he was just instilling values in us as we were growing up. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And so now let's shift gears. Let's fast forward
Hmm.
to the loss of your father and the early moments, of realizing that, your father was gone. and the process, you know, you know, the early, the first, the fast processing of, of the idea that you were either going to lose your father or you had lost your father. What were your initial thoughts and your emotions? Yeah.
So I'll tell you what happened in terms of how the news was broken to me. I had attended a friend's function, and my parents had actually been invited to the function, but for various reasons were unable to attend the function. So function goes on well, evening dropping off my friends' guests and etc. And my brothers kept calling me, and I'm like, okay, I've just talked to you like 5 minutes ago, you don't need to call me another 5 minutes because you know how our traffic is, right? So we've barely moved. So anyway, eventually I end up at my brother's place, the one I follow, and he breaks the news. And I asked 4 times because it was just not, I was just not processing it. He's like, we have bad news. And I'm like, okay. So my thought process was because my uncle had just lost his wife. So I was still thinking along that line. So when he starts with, we have bad news, I'm like, okay, yeah, what's going on? And he goes like, we've lost dad. So I sit there, chair, I look at him and I ask him, who? He's like, we've lost dad. And I ask a second time, who? And he really indulged me because I asked him 4 times, as in who. Then I remember just waking up, going to wear my sneakers, and I just walked out of his house. I didn't have a plan in terms of where I was going. I had absolutely no plan. I just didn't know what I was doing, but I just recall waking up, wearing my shoes, not saying anything, walking out his door. My niece passes me and goes like, hey, Auntie Sarah. And in my mind, I processed that she has said, hey, Auntie Sarah, and she's so excited. And I'm thinking, oh gosh, sweetie, I don't have the energy or to be able to say something to you right now. And I just broke down. I didn't realize that my younger brother had been following me all this time, Anyway, so breakdown, and, a few minutes later, really have to compose yourself because mom had no idea. And we figured, it would be best for us to be able to tell mom this story. I mean, to tell mom that dad had passed. And we live like, 460 something kilometers away from each other, mom and us. So it was getting into a van, driving. We had to hire a driver because, of course, none of us were capable of driving. And we get home at about 5 a.m. The following morning and break the news to mom. And, it all starts again. And then it just becomes like you're watching somebody else, going through the motions, because you just go through the motions. And then at some point, you feel like you're just watching somebody else and you're like, yeah, that's Sara and she's doing, A, B, C, D. But if you ask me what we did the first 2-3 days in terms of preparing for dad's burial, honestly don't recall. because I was just going through the motions. So for me, I went into autopilot the first, actually maybe 2 weeks until we buried dad, just into autopilot. And then finally came back to Nairobi because we were in a different town. Finally came back to Nairobi, and it's when it all came crashing down, you know. I can't call him. I can't speak to him. There's no one who I'm going to share a joke with, like, you know, we normally used to at some random time of the day. We loved swapping novels, or, you know, calling each other and telling each other, hey, okay, so this is the book I'm reading, and I just have to tell you what this person has said, you know. Yeah, I can't do that, you know. So I kind of felt that no one in my family would be able to understand me, because, you know, dad and I had a specific relationship, and he did have of course, a specific relationship with each and every one of us. You know, my brothers, my mom, of course. You know, in as much as he was dad and her husband, we all had our own unique relationship with him. You know, so I felt like, you know, no one would understand me because, unfortunately, no one in the family likes to read books. It was just him. Yeah. So it was just the two of us. Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, you know, and the things we loved, you know, oh, my brothers have no clue about soccer, never played soccer. I played soccer. And yeah, and so dad and I would connect, you know, with respect to soccer. Yeah. So now again, I'm like, okay, so there's no one to talk about, you know, Man U is, you know, at the bottom of the table or something, you know. So, small. Okay, I laugh about it now, but
I know. Yeah.
yeah, but it's those it's those small things, you know, where that really get to you, and when you start thinking about it, when you remember, and you just start bawling, as in terms of crying, because, like I said, okay, I can't call him. He was the one person who, if I had an issue at work in terms of corporate governance, I'd be like, hey, dad, this is what I'm going through, you know, can you guide me in terms of what would be the best way to handle this and whatever. So all that just suddenly ceased, you know. And for me, because we were such good friends, in the sense that he was, you know, my confidant. In fact, there was one time when I'd broken up with an ex, he was like, can I hang up on him? Because he had called home. Dad was like, I know you've broken up. Can I hang up? In fact,
Can I hang up? I know.
yeah. He's like, can I hang up? Yeah. 'Cause, I mean, he could see the way I was so heartbroken. And he's like, so in his head, he's like, what's this dude calling to speak to my daughter? And he's just broken her heart. So he's like, can I hang up? Yeah, that was dad. Very cool. So anyway, yeah, so when you think about such moments, you know, and the milestones that you have gone through, and then, you know, there are other milestones that you're going to go through, and he's not there, it's one, it's terrifying, because who's going to hold your hand? Because he was the one person who would hold my hand, right? And two, like I said, I felt like my family may not understand me. Not that they don't, but I just felt that was the feeling that I had then, you know, that my family wouldn't understand me. And it also reached a point where I felt that I had lost my identity. I had lost who I am, because we were so intertwined, and I just couldn't, bring myself to want to live. You understand? The will to live, because I was like, what's the point? What's the purpose? That is gone, I know it doesn't sound nice or right because I still have family, brothers, mom, but I'm like, this dude is gone. So what's the point of me going on with life? So then I hit a slump, like serious slump. I would only leave the house because I had to go to work. And I remember the first day that I had to go to work, I got into the car and I just started crying because I was like, okay, this is my first day of work without my, angel on my shoulder, no one is going to tell me, okay, do it this way, do it that way, So like, I spent almost 20 minutes, in the car just crying. Anyway, so get to work and I just closed off, emotionally. And the only thing that I would engage with was work related, then get home in the evening and watch very mind numbing, something on Netflix or any other show, just to numb my mind because I don't want to think about it, because thinking about him not being there, I would just start crying, And the one thing that I had such difficulty wrapping my head around was just how death is so final, and there are no second chances, it's he's gone, he's gone. Deal with it. And it's not like you're given another option. The only option you've been given is deal with it. And then I remember, and I know people meant well, and I know people do mean well, but certain phrases would just set me off, but I know people meant well, but telling me that it shall be well used to be my undoing. I would either snap or I would cry, depending on, I guess, whatever time of day it was or who the individual was who was telling me that, because it will not be well. He's gone. The rest of my life shall be spent without him. So it will not be well. And I know you mean well, and you're trying to comfort me, but don't tell me it will be well when it will not be well, Of course, I'm not telling the person this, but this is what, is going through my mind. And because I wanted to shield myself from such conversations and platitudes and etc., I just retreated. As it is, I'm an introvert, so I just retreated, went into my cocoon, to the point that, my family was so worried about me, And then, I remember, so every Sunday at 7 p.m. without fail, I would call mom and dad, it didn't matter where they were, what they were doing. They would be having guests and they would just drop them and say, hey, we gotta go home. We're expecting an important phone call. So, yeah. So it used to be so much fun because, so depending on who I call, if I call mom, so I would start having the conversation with mom, and then you would hear dad in the background shouting something, Or if I called dad, then you'd hear mom in the background shouting something because she's, they both want to be part of the conversation and no one wants to be left out of the conversation. So that was our ritual for so many years, if I may use that terminology. But then after that, Faith, I can't do a 7:00 Sunday call anymore. I just can't. Yeah.
Except today.
Oh yeah. No, with mom.
It's not you. Can you believe this? We are not making this up. Can you believe this? We have
that's true.
Something.
That's true. Gosh, you've got
and
me
you
out
know
of
what's so interesting, Sarah? It was not supposed to be 7:00. How many things had to happen for it to be 7:00?
And it was not even meant to be today, by the way.
No.
Yeah. So it had to be today.
Yeah. And as we're talking and I'm seeing you smiling and grinning and having a good time. I can literally see you going through those, going back to the scenes of having the conversations over the football, because it just makes you smile and laugh.
Yeah.
And the moment you're talking about the 7:00 calls, you're just, you're so radiant, like you're literally going through those moments. And that is so beautiful to see that, and this is the thing, even during grief, when people are grieving, there are moments where you can go back to this, like it was today, like it's actually happening now, and actually relive, you're talking about soccer, you know. It was so interesting that your brothers, who are, supposed to be the cliche soccer guys, are not the ones into soccer. It's the girl, the sister. Can you believe that? Right? Everyone would assume that he would be discussing soccer with his son.
No.
But no.
They have no clue. I'm telling you that I don't even think they know who a center field is or what a center field is. That's how bad it is. Yeah. And I like what you have said, Faith, because I may be not pointing, I may be painting a wrong picture, quote unquote.
No, you're not.
In the sense that I don't look like somebody who's grieving, but I am grieving, It's just, and I am still grieving, I'm still healing, but this is not where I was 2.5 years ago, when Dad passed. No.
We know.
I mean, and like I said, I was totally, in my cocoon, hardly ever picked phone calls, hardly ever responded to friends. And I'm not saying that is what people should do. No, you need the support. But for me, I do a lot of internalizing. I need to process things internally, mentally, before I can act or react, So it took me 2 years. It can take somebody a shorter time. It can take somebody a longer time. The thing about grief is it's your grief. It's your journey. It's unique. And only you know when you are ready to move on to the next step, the next stage. No one can tell you how to grieve, when to grieve. And, excuse me, you just have to go with the flow. So for me to be able to have this conversation with Faith and and like she says, look radiant, and we're laughing and we're smiling about it. It has taken me a lot to get here. It's not been an easy journey, and I know that the journey is not over yet, but I am in a much better space than I was 2.5 years ago. And I thank friends like Faith who didn't give up on me. There are those who did. I look for them. I hope they'll forgive me. But it's important to be able to have friends like Faith who totally believe in you and don't give up on you, because unless you have gone through such kind of loss, you really cannot understand what the person is going through. I mean, I had lost cousins, I had lost uncles, I had lost aunts. So I thought I knew what grieving was all about. I thought I knew what loss was until Dad passed. And it's something totally different. It's not the same.
No.
Yeah.
And when people put they act like, but you've grieved, you need to move on. I think there's a lack of education as to the process of, what different levels, different kinds of loss, grieving. People are different. I can't say this enough. And relationships are different. Your relationship with your father, is not Sarah's relationship with her father. Some people don't even interact with their parents that much. Yeah. So, they might be maybe a little bit more disconnected. Some don't with their parents. So when some people are telling you, like you said, they mean well, because people can only sometimes share love, comfort, friendship to the extent and degree that they can, based on what they know. Yeah. And, I have, maybe because of my, the areas that I have worked with, I've worked with, I've worked with, survivors of human trafficking and all. I know that triggers are real. Yeah. And you have done so many things with your father. It could just take you picking your favorite book.
Yeah. Oh,
it could be something as little as that. It could be you ordering your Starbucks on, it could be you receiving a call at 7:00.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And and if you've done, the more things you have done, the more memories you're surrounded by. And so if you've done so many things, if you've been, every day, they've been such a part of your life, every minute, every second. Yeah, that is a long, long process of detachment, or coping. And yes, there are moments where you can, like today, I'm so happy to see you smiling and laughing. Yeah. I wasn't saying it because it was a process. Oh, yeah. And I don't want to go too much into it, but I want you to touch on something that people take for granted. When you were describing your relationship with your father, and you talked about the things that were unique, when it comes to the things that you were doing and the kind of support that he was to you. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, this huge support system, this best friend, good friend, confidant, advisor, father, everything, right? Yeah. Is gone, right? Yeah. And your family could not fill that gap, not because they didn't want to, but they're not into soccer. It's not their thing. They can't start filling the soccer gap overnight, right? They don't read the books. There's so many things that they couldn't feel, right? I mean, let's just keep it real. They're going to help you with what they have, They're going to bring to the table what they have, right? And so I was just thinking, now here is Sarah. These things need still to be filled. You need to understand the governing board, right? So now, did you find yourself needing to lean on different people, specific people, and seeking different resources?
Yeah. Yeah. You do,
because this is a huge gap, and it can't just be left empty. Your life is still going on, and you still need this kind of support. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You do raise a very good question, a very important question, which a lot of people don't ask, and I actually don't think I addressed it in my book. But so yes, the gap needs to be filled. And the part that I found very difficult, and still do, because not all gaps have been filled, is finding that level of authenticity, honesty, and you know for a fact that this person is not playing you, is giving you very sound advice. Finding that type of person is not easy at all, because the truth of the matter is not everybody who you meet or interact with is going to meet you at that level of honesty, authenticity, and that's also something that I still struggle with to date, because I need that authenticity, I need that honesty, but like I said, it's not everybody who's going to give it to you, or it's not everybody who you're going to meet who's going to be like that. So I did struggle a lot at work thereafter, because I think I only found it with a senior management team member, and with another lady who was part of the management team, like N-1, those were the two people who I found who were truly genuine. However, they could only help to a certain extent. So what helped me, especially with respect to corporate governance, is the fact that I sit on, and I have sat on different boards, and therefore being able to interact with other individuals who, have been in the board for longer. I mean, these are people who are like 20 years my senior, so you can imagine the kind of knowledge that, they carry with them. And those are now the people that I gravitated towards, especially with respect to issues to do with corporate governance, and they've been very helpful to date, because now, those are the ones I call. Like I said, I can't call dad. So, those are the ones I call. And thankfully, they have been very accommodating. They have been very patient. They've been very understanding. And because they come from the old school where they believe in mentoring, savoring the moment, because, they're sharing what they know with me. But something like, for example, soccer, I haven't gone back. I haven't gone back to watch it because I'm like, oh, well, who am I going to, discuss it with? Yeah, I mean, they're colleagues at work and etc. who I could.
I mean, you are lots of soccer fans.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not the same, I mean,
I know what you mean.
Yeah. It may sound, it will come across as superficial. You get what I mean? But with dad, it was and because he was dad, it was different. Novels.
Do you feel like that's a kind of a memory that you just don't want to share with others?
It's possible, because
you know
there's
what
something.
I mean? Yeah, because as you were saying, soccer. The whole world loves soccer. I mean, I'm not saying except Faith.
We gotta make you love soccer.
No way. But I know that's the one thing that there's plenty of people to fully enjoy with, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just getting the feeling, I could be wrong. I feel like it's one of those memories, or maybe you have others that you're like, this one I am not sharing. I'm just keeping it, and so I could be wrong, but
no, you're very correct. You're very correct. there's some things I'm still not ready to let go of. Certain things I had to let go of because, for example, my team needed answers, and I needed to give them answers, because if I don't give them answers, then nothing gets done, So with respect to issues relating to corporate governance, then I had to reach out to somebody to assist me, so that I'm able to assist the team, right? So something like that, I really didn't have a choice. But as you say, something like soccer or, favorite author, novel, whoever, those are things which I haven't let go of, or rather let somebody in, whom I can sit down and have that discussion with, because because I still want to savor the moment with dad. For some people, 2.5 years may seem maybe too long to hold on to such things. For me, it's still too short. There are certain things that I'm just not ready to let go of. Like I said before, grief is a very interesting thing. There are certain things which you will be able to let go of sooner. There are others which will take time, and that's why I said, in the beginning, that I'm still grieving, I'm still healing, because as you've pointed out, there are just certain areas of my life that I still not shared with others.
And this got me thinking about the memories and certain actions and things, because you mentioned so many things that you love to do with him in the most beautiful and exciting way. Like you'll watch the video, your smile, it just shows how much you are really savoring the moment of the thought. And it got me thinking about, are there any rituals, memories, or actions that you've held on to as a way of keeping your father's memory alive?
So I'll tell you something, and so by accident, I bumped into the shop in one of our malls. And so let me back up the story a bit. A few years back, I was like, oh my gosh, Sarah, you don't have an African dress. I'm like, seriously? I mean, how can you be X years old and you still don't have an African dress? Something needs to change,
No,
So
in Kenya, it's very typical for Kenyans.
Yeah, I know, right? So,
Kenyans, let me know. Kenyan, to all our Kenyan listeners, I love you, and Sarah knows that what I'm saying is legit. Kenyans, we've been called out on our national dressing and our African loyalty to our African culture. And our inability to agree on a national dress. So I rest my case. Go on, Sarah.
Yeah. So, okay. I guess maybe that's why I had procrastinated for that long. So anyway.
You were right at home.
Yeah. So I walked past
No one
the
noticed.
shop. Yeah. No one will. Or no one does, for that matter. So one time I walked past the shop at one of our malls, and I'm like, oh, they have African, dresses. I'm like, okay, let me go try that on. So you will not believe it. I was only going to buy one dress. Yeah, I walked out with 5. Shame on me, impulsive buying. But that's also another thing. That's also another thing. In terms of impulse buy, or doing some things on impulse. I mean, you will find that for me, the okay, let me call it interesting, let me not call it weird or strange, thing that I ended up doing after that passed is I would go to the bookshop, and I would leave with either 5 or 10 books. No kidding. Now is when I'm beginning to read them. yeah, I just kept piling books because remember, books was a thing between dad and I.
Mm-hmm.
So I would walk into a bookshop. I'm like, oh yeah, this was one of his favorite authors.
Oh,
Pick,
wow.
you know? Yeah. And then come home, I have this, whatever, and 2.5 years later is when I'm beginning to read the books. I mean, for real, you know. So
Yeah.
anyway, so I get into the shop, get this, African attire, and funny enough, we end up really clicking with the owner of the shop. And one time when the folks were around in Nairobi, we go to the shop, because mom was attending, there was a function that they were attending, and mom wanted an African dress. So I was like, oh, I know a place. So we went, did shopping. So dad had never worn an African attire, and this dude was past 70. Okay. Yes. So there we were trying to convince him how, you know what, you would look good in an African wherever. He's like, yeah.
Boomers. Yeah. Anyway, I love them.
Yeah.
I call you the wise ones, but y'all sometimes you really took that British stuff to a whole other level.
I know, right? Yeah. So anyway, eventually we convince him, and he gets this very nice top. And so what he used to do is, because he ended up loving it so much, he used to leave it at my place.
Oh.
Never used to travel with it up country, and would only wear it when he's in Nairobi.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So there are a few articles of clothing that were left in my closet after, he passed on, And again, this is something which I haven't been able to do in terms of clear that side of the closet and whatever. But then interestingly enough, we had a conversation with mom not too long ago, and she was like, you know what, I think maybe it's time I cleared some of dad's things. And I said, well, for as long as you feel that you're ready for that, and it's not somebody who's rushing you to do that, or somebody who's telling you that that is part of the process and so you need to do it, I'm okay with it, Then I go like, I just have one favor to ask. Can I keep that shirt? So she knew what I meant when I said, can I keep that shirt? And she was like, yeah, yes, you can. So I have the shirt. It's hanging in my closet. I haven't worn it yet.
Framed it. I would imagine the way you love to express yourself. I would imagine you would have put it in a frame. No, the way I know you. Yeah, but
I know. Yes, yeah. I just haven't gotten. I haven't gotten the courage to remove it from the closet. Wow. Yeah. I look at it in the closet, but I hear you. I'll do that. I just haven't, because I think okay, I know he's gone, and I know this might sound strange to people, but at the back of my mind, I'm like, if I do that, then I'm saying he's completely gone, and I'm not ready for that yet.
Yeah, because in your closet, it's kind of like he may walk in anytime to wear it.
Exactly. Exactly. It may sound morbid, but well, yeah.
I mean, we're so over what people think, because at the end of the day, this is, I'm just going to say it like I see it. This is a solo walk. It's a solo journey. Nobody can wear your shoes.
Yeah.
Nobody can literally feel your shoes and tell you this is how to feel. You will never feel what somebody says. So you cannot judge something you don't understand. You know what I mean? And you cannot critique something that is not your story. So morbid or not, it's not your story to judge as morbid or not, as weird or not, because you're not walking in those shoes, and you will never walk in those shoes. It's not even, it just is. you know. And
Yeah.
so I find it
Yeah.
very interesting when people say, you know, this is long enough, this is what you would never know, because that is not
Mm,
story, and it is not
yeah.
your walk, it's not your journey,
No.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I like that you have walked us through the process, and I am seeing how grief can evolve and take
Mm-hmm.
so many forms, shapes, and how the
Mm-hmm.
stories keep on. How people say you're weaving a tapestry, but I can
Yeah.
literally see, the journey and
Yeah.
the evolution, and
Yeah.
as you're talking. But
Yeah.
some of our listeners who may not be seeing things the way I'm seeing it, can you
Mm-hmm.
walk us through, what you have come to see as the evolution of grief, as somebody is walking through the journey from the point of when it happens to the point of where you
Mm-hmm.
are right now, and also looking forward?
Okay, for me, like I said, for almost 2 years, I just retreated into cocoon, and it didn't help or doesn't help that I'm an introvert, so I even became even more of an introvert. And then, like I said, the only reason why I would step out of the house was to go to work. I mean, thank God for technology. Uh, order in, etc. So seriously, as in, I would get home Friday by 5:30 p.m. and I don't leave my apartment until Monday morning, when going to work. And unfortunately, because of, well, or fortunately, depends on how you look at it, because of that, and because I just deliberately shut myself out, from the world, I really, really got stuck, in terms of what next, you
Mm,
know, or even in terms of processing. Like I said, mentally, I was
mm,
still like, how, you know, this is just so final. Mentally, I was still at that point that this is, too final. And for us, it was also very sudden, totally unexpected,
mm,
And I was just like, this is just too final. I need to learn how to wrap my head around the finality of, of loss.
mm,
And and then I was not grieving. So the funny thing was, I would watch, and there would be very innocuous shows, I would
mhm,
watch a show and maybe see a daughter and her father, and that would
oh,
that would be my trigger.
mm,
And I would, end up crying, and I would cry for hours on end, or even cry myself to sleep. And then for me, at the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I'm crying, so I'm grieving, right? But remember, I was watching mind numbing TV shows just so that I don't have to constantly think about, the loss of dad.
mm,
And then here I am consoling myself that because of XYZ TV show and I have cried, that I have begun to process my grief.
mm,
But that wasn't the case, because what I was doing is what is called passive healing. I was just waiting for time to go
mhm,
by, and expect that time will heal all wounds. Because, I mean, how many times haven't we had that time will heal all wounds?
yeah,
What you begin to realize, or what I began to realize, was that if I want to move on from the current state I was in, because I had gotten to a point where I was just so constantly sad, you know, and I was like, okay, I think it's about time that, you need to just bringing a little bit of happiness into your life, you know. And then the most amazing thing is I had these two buddies who would call me like twice a week. No, each would call me once a week. So the two of them would call me in the week. And their purpose, and they had never discussed this between the two of them, their purpose was just to hear me laugh. And once they hear me laugh, then they hang up. Okay. So that was the purpose for calling me. But I so appreciate them for doing that. You know, like I said, you know, I mean, them and you know, never gave up on me. And for anybody who's hearing this and perhaps have given up on a friend, don't give up on that friend. You know, it's because they are unable to express themselves, because that is this point I was at. I was unable to express myself in terms of, for example, telling Faith, I need you. You know, I expected Faith to know that I needed her, but then Faith would reach out to me, but I don't reach out to her. So she'd be like, okay, what's going on? But I really did need Faith. I just now was stuck in terms of, I don't know how to express myself. I don't know what to say. I don't know, you know, if silence would make you uncomfortable. You know, so many things go through your mind. So anyway, when I told myself that you cannot continue feeling so sad, and, you know, you have to find a way to get unstuck, because I was stuck, I figured, okay, let me join a grief support group. And I did. But guess what? After week 3, I dropped out. Because in retrospect, I realized that I had joined too soon, you know. So, yeah, so there's such a thing as also rushing through your grief. And I realized that when I was like, okay, you need to get unstuck, I said, okay, fine, let me accelerate this. But then from my experience, accelerated too fast. So we used to meet weekly. It was a virtual meeting, but it became too heavy for me, you know, in terms of sharing, and then in terms of listening to people and people pouring into in terms of their processes, where they're at with respect to their grief. And I realized that, you know, I wasn't ready for that. So I dropped off and then went back to my cocoon. And I'm like, okay, fine, Sarah, you need to get out of this, you know. And it really took a lot, you know, in terms of me pushing myself, because remember now, I don't have my fan with me. My number one fan is gone. So there's no one, so there's no one who's going to come and literally pull me up and tell me, hey, you know, you've got to get out of this, you know. So it was just a mental push. And like I said, for me, my, let me call it breaking point, was that I just felt that, you know, being sad all the time was just not on. You know, I needed to bring in some sunshine, some happiness into my life. And as a result of that, then I did a course called Write the First Time, you know, because I do recall sharing this with a friend after that passed. I said, you know what, I'd like to write a book about Dad, you know. So I'd always, in the beginning, imagined that I would do a biography about, you know, Dad. And in fact, he'd even helped me. He had even listed, you know, the 10 chapters, as in we had gone that far. But then remember, I was rushing. out of my grief. So I went back into my cocoon, because I realized, okay, wait a minute, this is too soon, too fast, and whatever. So during the course, the fast time, and again, it was virtual. So for me, anything that was virtual, I would do. For as long as I don't need to leave the house, okay, yeah, I would do it.
Thank God for technology.
Yeah. So, so that was part of the beginning for me. And then, like I said, my colleague at work, just also, she just made it a point of always coming to my office to just find out how I was doing. So we would take walks together, not necessarily talk about grief or whatever, even about the weather, yeah. But just seeing her, put in that kind of effort, also made me realize, what, I also need to invest in myself and do something about, like I said, bringing some sunshine into my life. So, yeah, so did the course. Then I was like, okay, so what am I going to write? How am I going to write? Then an opportunity came to do an anthology, so we were about 12 ladies who got together and did a book, because now I was like, okay, let me test my writing to see if, I have what it takes. So I did that, but it was still very difficult for me at that point, because I was in between getting unstuck and going back to being stuck in my grief, but managed and to do that, and the book was finally published. And just being able to reach a milestone, because that was a milestone, being able to reach that kind of milestone is what gave me the impetus, to move forward, to be more present with family. And I think also because mom was a bit sickly, part of the last half of last year, now you have to engage with people, So because of having now to engage with people more often and having to be present, having to make decisions, not the kind of decisions that you want to make, but because you are engaging and you have to get out of, your cocoon, and sometimes you're the one who has to initiate these conversations, that helped in not necessarily bringing sunshine into my life, but getting me unstuck, and eventually, early this year, wrote a book about my grief journey, which for me was cathartic. It was a way for me to heal and at the same time honor his legacy. And the other thing that I did, which I wouldn't say works for everybody, was I left employment because the environment just wasn't conducive for me anymore, and I was like, what, mental health vis-a-vis going to work in an environment that wasn't conducive anymore, whilst I was still grieving, whilst healing, and with the demands of the nature of the job, I just realized that I was putting a lot of stress on myself, and decided to remove myself from that. So that has helped in the sense that mentally my stress levels have really reduced, and I'm able to I call it, I have more clarity of purpose now, and I think that's one of the reasons that also accelerated my need to want to write about my grief journey, because I knew that this is what I needed to do to help me heal. So, and writing for me has always been cathartic. Faith, did you know that I used to write poems when I was in standard 6? Yeah. So for me, just they may seem like small steps, but they were not only just small, but intentional, and they are what we call also active. So what I was doing is engaging in active healing, in the sense that I was doing something positive to help me address my grief, to help me address the loss, to help me cope, to help me process and express, because expressing the grief was what had been a very difficult thing for me to do, because everything was internal. But now, because of these short courses that I had taken in terms of writing, and now being able to put my thoughts, into pen and paper, is what has slowly helped me get to where I'm at today. So, yeah, everyone will have a different way of being able to do it, but the key thing is to be active and intentional. Don't sit back like I did for almost 2 years, waiting for time to heal. And this is me, from my journey, from my experience. I realized that for me to heal, I need to help myself to heal. So I need to be active. I need to be intentional. I need to do things, like I said, that will bring sunshine into my life. I need to reach out to, my friends, like Faith, and have conversations and laugh with them. Those are the things that, one needs to do. And yes, I'm still grieving, I'm still healing, but I have realized that the two will coexist, in terms of missing dad and, going on with life. The two will just have to coexist. Do I want my life to come to a standstill at some point? I would have said yes, but I decided no. Life has to go on. So you have to find meaning and purpose. And the other thing I have to say is that I finally was able to get back my identity, because remember, like I said, I had lost my identity, when dad passed. But because I kept processing all these things mentally and etc., I was able to finally, jolt myself back and like, hey, Sarah, you know what? Yes, dad is gone, but you're still here. You've not lost your identity. You've not lost who you are. You still have a purpose in life. You're here for a reason. So you have to find your reason, and your reason can be family. Your reason can be your children. Your reason can be so many different things, but you have to find that reason. It's that reason that will allow you to get into the active healing phase and, propel you to begin healing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Sarah, you've offered such a deep introspection on how grief can be a transformative experience.
Thank you.
And I want us just to go back to the book, because a lot of people, when you say, oh, I read a book, I've written books, you know that. They don't know that. They never ask themselves, where did the words come from?
Yeah.
Where did the stories come from?
Yeah.
They just see it already on the paper, but
Yeah.
you have to pull that stuff, you know. Let me just
Yeah.
because my question to you is, what
Mm-hmm.
have you learned about yourself through the grieving and the writing process? Because I know that was a process of learning
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
transformation.
Yeah. I'll tell you something.
Mm.
And this was years back. So I love jigsaw puzzles.
Mm.
And the more the pieces, the merrier, you know?
I know, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember one time, dad telling me that, no, he stood watching me doing it, and he could see I was really so excited, you know, because I'd found this piece that
In
had,
the clouds.
yeah, yeah, I know, right? Yeah, yeah, especially the clouds, you know, and you're like, yeah. So, so anyway, he watched me and he told me, you know, you're very resilient. And I remember at that age, I didn't know what the word was. So I asked him, what does that mean? So then he pointed towards the bookshelf. And so what he was pointing at was a dictionary. We used to have this thick, yeah, before Google. So guys, it was before Google. So we had, yeah, like physical,
What do you mean before Google, before the internet?
oh yeah, man. It was before the internet. Oh yes. Oh gosh, Faith, we've just told people how old we are. But anyway,
Oh, yes, I am unapologetic. I am a seasoned
yeah,
woman, and I am very proud of it.
yeah. So anyway, so yeah, so this thick, yeah. So let me also use the terminology reference book, but it was a dictionary
I
and
know
English.
those reference books,
Yeah.
and they had volumes.
Oh yes. Yeah.
Like in
So
volume four.
So I flipped through to alphabet from A to R. I finally get to R. And then after R, I look for E because remember, I'm looking for resilience. And then S. Anyway, so I finally get to the word resilient and I read and I'm like, okay, all right. But to be very honest, it is now that I'm beginning to understand that I am resilient, you know, because going through loss, you know, loss is traumatic, you know, going through loss and being able to pull myself, you know, because like I said, there wasn't anybody else who was there to do it for me. So being able to pull myself out of that state of constant sorrow, you know, is something that I'm glad I was able to do that. But it just goes to show that that was right about me being resilient because I wasn't ready to give up on myself. You know, in as much as he wasn't there, and in as much as I felt that I also shouldn't be there because he's not there, I reached a point where I realized, you know what, I'm not ready to give up on myself. So I now know that, yeah, I'm truly resilient. You know, it's wasn't just something that a father told a daughter because, you know, he thought, hey, let me boost her confidence. No, it is something that I have come to see for myself that I am. And the other thing is being vulnerable. It's not something that comes easy for me or to me, but to be able to put my grief journey down on pen and paper meant that I had to be that
Yeah.
because there's no other way you can tell that story without opening yourself up to the world, for them to see into your world, for them to understand what it was like for you, what that process is. And remember, I'm an introvert. So me opening my world to the world is scary. Yeah.
Brave.
Very, yeah, oh yeah. And bold. But through the process, I realized that grief is not a topic that we discuss. You know, it's not things that we talk about. I'll be very honest, even as a family, we have rarely sat down and, you know, had like an extensive conversation about dad's loss. There've just been snippets here and there. But somebody needs help, you know, and because I was going through it 90% alone, I figured, you know what, it would be important to help somebody else, at least for me to show them how I did it. They don't necessarily have to use my blueprint, but hey, you know, this is what I did. This is what worked for me. It may work for you. It may not work for you, but at least here's a guide that can help you, and especially where you may not have somebody to lean back on for support. So you're here. So I had to be bold. I had to be open. I had to be vulnerable. I'm still learning how to, you know, be all that. But in the end, my purpose is to empower people. So for me, this is one way of empowering people, you know, empowering that person who has lost a loved one, or empowering a friend to be able to support a friend who has lost, you know, a loved one.
Yeah. And I know that the book is not out. It should be out this summer, latest in the autumn, right?
Yeah.
So before the book comes out, which we can talk about later when it's out, you're always welcome to come back and talk about that. I would like you maybe to, how do I pose it? Maybe let me just say, what advice would you give someone who is just beginning their grieving journey after losing one? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know it might sound strange, but I would advise the person to grieve unapologetically. Don't hold back your grief or your emotions or whatever it is that you're going through. You know, don't hold it back. You know, express yourself. It's very important that you express yourself, because those are one of the small steps that, you know, you need to take towards healing. So don't feel ashamed that you are emotional. It's your loved one who has passed, you know. This is somebody who you shared X number of years with, or you shared intimate conversations with, you know. This was somebody who was there for you morning, noon, and night, you know. So don't be ashamed, don't be embarrassed to show that you loved them, because the thing about grief or loss or sorrow, it's an expression of just how much you loved the person, you know. So don't hide, you know. be unapologetically grief stricken, if I, may, yeah, if I may put it, that way,
I like that you're saying that because
Yeah,
I always believe that, the God, the creator, the most high, whatever you call that, or yourself, whatever you believe in, but the
yeah,
creator, you're here because
yeah,
someone created this earth, this life. But I
yeah,
don't think that all these emotions were created for nothing. I think
exactly,
they're all there to be expressed,
exactly,
and,
exactly.
and people shame you. Oh, she's so angry. That is toxic. Oh, this and this. We need to move away from that because holding back the emotions is actually
Mhm.
more toxic to your health than
Exactly,
expressing them. And also,
exactly.
we have this new culture, this cancel culture, or this, oh, I'm just going to block, delete, cancel, whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
we need to also stop overdoing things, calling
Mm-hmm.
everybody a narcissist and, or, oh, she's toxic, she's a narcissist. People
Mm-hmm.
sometimes are just expressing things based on triggers. It could be as simple as, you went to her father's favorite restaurant and all of a sudden
Yeah,
Sarah has an attitude,
I know.
and you're like,
I
what's going
know.
on
Yeah,
with her? She's toxic. No, you need to take time, give people
yeah,
space, then find out, okay, what was that in the restaurant? When they've had
I
time
know,
to
right?
think about it, instead of this new culture of block, delete, cancel, oh, you're toxic, you're a narcissist, I want to maintain my peace, all
Yeah,
that stuff. I think
yeah.
the same way you would want someone to give you grace when
Mm-hmm.
you are going through your triggers, because everyone
Mm-hmm.
has them. We live on
Mm-hmm.
this earth. There's a lot of
Yeah,
things that trigger us. It's the
yeah.
same way you should give the other person grace. You know what I mean?
Exactly,
So I like
exactly.
that you have told people just feel free to express yourself. And
Yeah.
Sarah, what I've learned as a seasoned woman is if you're around the right people,
Mm-hmm.
you know them by the way they allow you to be yourself.
Exactly. Exactly. And
Hmm.
that's where I was telling you that it's not always that you'll find that authentic or honest person.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's not always. So even the default would be, why is she acting like a BIT, you know? Yeah. But like you said, um, you probably went to their favorite restaurant.
With the
And
dad. Yeah, with your
yeah,
dad. It has
yeah,
nothing to do with you. People always take things so
exactly.
personal. Like you
Yeah,
have done zero wrong. But now the way you have
exactly.
reacted has made you do
Yeah,
something wrong. Discarding your friend of what, 20 years? Come on now.
I know, right? Yeah. And I mean, and if you call yourself the friend, you should have known that that's their favorite restaurant, I mean, yeah.
That too. Hmm.
Yeah. But, and what you said is very important because we have, what is this? So we have goldfish attention span, you know. Faith was this way today. Oh, I don't have time for her. But you're forgetting that she's still going through a process. She's not,
Yeah.
and she's not the same person who you knew before. This is an after, you know. I don't know what my after is going to look like 5 years from now, but this is my after. I'm also learning who I am in this new stage of life, and therefore you can't always expect that I'll be that old self because loss changes you. you know Loss makes you, for some people, they become more, what's the word, introspective. Others go and decide, oh, you know what, this is the time that I am going to go and hike through, the Himalayas or whatever. Yeah. Some eat, pray, love,
Yeah.
thing. But
Mhm.
yeah, but what I'm basically saying is that it changes you, and before you experience that kind of loss, you don't know how it's going to change you. You know? And for me, what I've also realized, and I know it will sound strange saying this, but I'm thankful for the lesson because I now have more grace for people because I'm like, you know what? They are probably going through something, you know, and therefore, you know, hold back. If, for example, was something that was meant to a report that you're meant to have received, let's say, 2 days ago or so, you know, just find out what the reason is first before you know, take it to HR, because, you know, some people will just go straight to HR without having a conversation. But, you know, like you said, you want grace, so give the other person grace as well. You want somebody to be patient with you, be patient with the other person as well. So I like that it has made me pause before, you know, reacting or overreacting, because I'm like, okay, there could be something that's, you know, going on with the individual. So, hey, yeah. And unless you go through something that profoundly shakes your core, it's not every day that you're going to find somebody who will show you that grace or that patience or that kindness. Yeah.
Yeah, because we're in this culture, there's something about, for lack of better words, I'm going to say trends. When I see things trending, I know there's always a group of people who will take it to the extreme. They're like, yeah, I mean, some of the things people tell me.
That's why it's trending.
Yeah, I'm like, I actually looked up the definition of a narcissist. And believe it or not, when you dig deeper into the definition of a narcissist, every freaking person is a narcissist. Everybody has a narcissistic moment.
Yeah.
Literally, there are times when even in the same sentence, sometimes you hear people talking about narcissism and they say, it's all about self-love and me, myself, and I'm like, that is kind of selfish, right? You are the narcissist per se. I'm overgeneralizing, but sometimes people don't take time to actually dig deep into a concept, understand it before they start running with it and destroying their relationships with their friends, their family, their children, their colleagues. I'm just gonna, my child did it. I have no, moving right along. I'm like, are you kidding me? So this, we call it grace, because we are seasoned women, but it could also be tolerance, for our younglings. And just maybe, my mom would always say eating with a long spoon, She always said eat with a long spoon so that you're sure that that thing, before it reaches your mouth, you know what it is. Before you jump the gun. And so, I really like today's conversation, Sarah. It's been really, really nice. It's been really enlightening. And just before we head out, we have one leg out the door, But before we head out, I have one last question for you. How did you continue, because I know you said it's a journey. You constantly made it very clear that this is a journey, right? How do you continue to find joy, right? And meaning, and you used the word purpose a lot. So to find joy, meaning, and purpose of life while still carrying the pain of the loss of such a wonderful and cherished friend, father, advisor, confidant, and all that good stuff that your father had embodied.
Wow. That's another good question. Um, so, in honoring his legacy, which is something that I hope that I'm doing, and I hope to continue. In honoring his legacy, I have found that I can do what I have always done. So, as a result of my profession, we've always had the younger generation, coming in, and you have to show them the ropes. You have to teach them, and I've always loved to do that. To empower them, and I realized that that's the exact same thing that Dad used to do as an educator. He used to empower us. With words, encouragement and, lessons, values. And I want to be able to embody that fully, because I don't think I'm at his level yet, and continue to empower in a different sort of way. And by that, I mean, because I have begun writing, I would love to reach a wider audience, with respect to empowering and speaking truth, being bold, being authentic, being honest, and having those discussions that people don't want to have. For example, mental health, depression, that sort of thing. Those are things which we should stop running away from. And, I'll go back to Dad. Dad was not the type of person to run away from a fight. He would meet it, head on, and, deal with it. So I find that because I'm passionate about what I am currently doing, and that is writing, and that because my writing has a reason, there's a reason for that, for my writing, which can also be translated to purpose, but there's a reason for why I'm writing. I am passionately writing to empower people so that they can begin to start having those conversations. Or if they're unable to have those conversations, they can turn to an experience of somebody that will help them and will guide them. It's kind of like the way if you don't teach or if you don't talk to your children about the birds and the bees, somebody else will, do that for you, yeah, for lack of a better, analogy, but yeah. So if, people are not having those conversations, then let's have those conversations. So because I have become emboldened, I guess maybe because of just being open and letting people know, hey, this is what has happened to me. I feel it's my calling, right? To talk about those conversations that, might get people, going under the table and etc. But like I said, it's something that I'm passionate about. And, when you're passionate about something, then really, and you're doing it. And as I told you, there was the milestone in terms of doing the anthology. And I'm like, oh, okay, you mean I can actually write? Great, And now, with the book soon being published, there's another milestone, that I've been able to accomplish. There is me leaving a workplace that I wasn't happy about, and just not being afraid to walk away. I think that is also something that has emboldened me, because I realized, you know what? It is my life. If I don't do something about it, who is, you know, and not being shy to go for what it is that you want. We all have dreams, so I'm like, you know what? How about I just go after my dreams? Right. And like I said, grief changes you, and sometimes it may make you feel like life is short, time is short. You had this bucket list. Can you start, uh, checking your bucket list, So it's somewhat kind of like that, because I had said that I will write at some point and whatever, but you know what? Dad was only 77, and he's gone. Who knows how long I'll be here for, So get going, get writing. But in terms of being happy, that's a conscious decision that one has to take, or one has to make, because I could still be doing what I'm passionate about doing and decide to remain Ms. Doom and Gloom, But yeah, no, seriously.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, that those people who, when they succeed or when they've reached a certain goal, they're like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, but there's a next one. No, celebrate the milestone that you have reached, that you have achieved, and it's because I have allowed myself to celebrate those milestones, look at them from a perspective of encouraging self, that I am where I am today, that I can sit down and, have a conversation with Faith and laugh with Faith, because like I said, I wasn't able to do that 2.5 years ago. But it's a conscious decision. It's not something that will be easy for many people to do. You just have to, one, allow yourself to be happy, understand that both loss and life moving will have to coexist, and just decide, do you want to remain sad for the rest of your life, or do you want to bring some sunshine, into your life? So for me, because I answered yes to having sunshine into my life, understanding that, joy and pain will coexist, getting back to understanding my identity and my purpose in terms of, empowering people, and just leaving fear behind. And that's, the thing that is not easy to do in terms of leaving fear behind, because we have a lot of limiting beliefs, and fear also, tends to hold us back. But if you just take one bold step, for example, skydiving, you're afraid of skydiving. Hey, go do skydiving. I'm telling you, if you go do skydiving, you'll be amazed what else you'll be emboldened, to do. So it's just those little steps. They're not major, but they have been major for me in the sense that I am where I am today, happier, more emboldened, passionate about what I'm doing, having achieved certain milestones, because I have taken the small steps to get there. It,
Yeah.
yeah.
And as you were talking about your passion for young people, mentoring them, showing them the ropes, teaching, and I was just thinking about something that a lot of our smart guests have talked about, and that is how many people report feeling like some kind of a sense of connection with their lost loved ones.
Yeah.
Basically they go through moments
Yeah.
where they can literally, this is not fiction, but they can literally feel the presence, So in your case, maybe feeling like your father's presence in unexpected ways, maybe in form of a memory or a sign or a smell,
Yeah.
Have you
Yeah.
ever had these moments?
Oh man. So you do know what my last name is, the surname AGAK, translated into English is a bird, right? Yeah. So for the longest time ever, there used to be this bird that would just show up in my balcony, and it never used to be there before. But after dad passed, this bird would just constantly show up, And I'm like, okay, dad, what are you telling me today? Yeah. I know it kind of sounds weird or crazy or whatever,
No, it
but
does not.
yeah, but for me, the connection is the fact that dad's name is a gak, and translated into English, it's a bird. And here's this bird that's visiting out of the blue. And the bird never used to visit before. And I kid you not, the bird never used to visit before. And
I believe
suddenly,
you.
yeah, and suddenly here you are. So I'm like, okay, I and and it used to appear. I think most of the time it used to appear in my lowest moments. Now that I think about it, now that you've asked that question, it used to appear in my lowest moments, and I'd look at the bird and smile and go like, "Okay, Dad, I hear you," and yeah, I think that also helped me because for me, we always say it, not we always, I mean, but for believers, we say that, our loved ones are looking down, upon us from heaven. And I was like, okay, I guess this is your sign of telling me that, you're looking down upon me. Yeah.
That is such a beautiful story. And when I talk to a lot of people here in the West, being best here in Scandinavia, they always say that people from the global South or, the Eastern cultures, the African cultures, imagine, Sarah, they say that we have such a wealth of knowledge when it comes to death and the afterlife and the ancestral realm. And they
Wow.
tell me more stuff that, if I started, sharing, it will be a whole new show. But
Yeah.
it's so interesting to me, not always in this positive way, just how much we have lost in terms of our knowledge.
Yeah.
And when you go to a lot of the museums or places around here in Europe, there is a lot of the culture here, written in the form of mythology. And they literally call it African mythology. And it is true what they say, that we have a lot of knowledge about,
Yeah.
and we knew death was not final.
No.
And we could go into that, for another whole hour or two, but it's just so a bit disheartening that we have to dig up, go within to find all these answers. And so I think your book is also good because at least it's going to have, spring, how, was it that the children's book where you put the breadcrumbs and guide people
Yeah.
to paths,
Was it Hansel and Gretel?
Let's not even mention her. Because and I learned what the story was about.
Yeah.
We were so innocent.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, the witch was but anyway, yeah, but
Yeah.
it's good. It's nice because when you read someone's book or a story or a myth, it actually opens you to new ideas. It can actually bring memories and knowledge that was just dormant, or guide you to different, to the next step, the next clue, So I think it's really nice that you're putting that experience into words and sharing.
Yeah.
And so I guess my final question, and then we can head out, is, how have your views changed on life, death, and relationships,
Oh, wow.
since losing your father? Yeah.
On life, death, and relationships.
Yeah, because I think you've touched on all of those.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, in terms of life, I think, not I think, as a child, when you have dreams and you say, for example, I want to be a doctor, I want to be an engineer, or rather the mindset of a child in terms of just believing anything is possible. I think it's important to continue believing that because, I know somewhere along the way, as you grow up, you have some serious character development, as we would call it back home. Life panel beats you, and
you need to focus on what is really important.
Exactly.
That was not important. Yeah, I know what you mean.
For example, I mean, from an African culture perspective, telling your parents that you wanted to be an artist, many years back, they'll be like, excuse me. Yeah. But
that would get you a tutor.
Exactly.
I would get you a tutor, and your Sunday playtime would be cancelled.
I know, right? Yeah,
because you're getting the wrong ideas from the wrong crowd.
Straight from church. You have lunch and you have tuition. So
in chemistry and biology and physics,
exactly, and maths.
What arts?
Exactly. Yeah, you need to be a doctor like Dr. So and so, and they tell you some neighbor. Yeah. But anyway, so what I'm getting at is, I mean, if you had that bucket list, if you had those dreams, go back and look at your bucket list, or go back and look at the dreams that you had, because you know what, it's all about manifestation. Because if you really truly believe that it will come to pass, something will come to pass. And it's all based on you believing in yourself and believing in your abilities, believing in your capabilities, and not letting people hold you down, and not letting, like I said, the fear and the limiting beliefs and the character development issues, hold you down. Because at the end of the day, what will you have to show? Family, kids, which is also very important. But don't forget your inner child, is what I'm trying to say. Don't forget the dreams that your inner child had, and do the best that you can to be able to make those dreams come true. Because they were put in you for a reason. You know, I mean, a lot of, and it's, you know, for a few years now, I've been reading a lot about legacy, even, you know, before Dad passed, because I've been asking myself, okay, so what's my legacy? But a lot of the things that you dream about when you're young, or you think about when you're young, you don't realize that that touches on what your legacy is going to be, or what your purpose is going to be. You just imagine that these are just the thoughts of, you know, a young child, thoughts of a dreamer. But I mean, I was writing poems when I was in, how old was that? 11, 12. And now I'm writing a book, second book, going to a third book, you know. So, you know, if I decided not to relive that memory or relive that dream, I wouldn't have written my journey. I wouldn't have empowered, you know, the person who's going to buy the book, you know. So in terms of life, I would say embrace it. And if there are any dreams that you remember as a child, if there are any dreams that, you know, I mean, we all do New Year resolutions that you haven't done now, you still have a few more months to go before the year ends. Do even just one. It could be a crazy one, but just do it, you know. Yeah, and believe in yourself, because I think, I don't know, this is me speaking as me, you know, as you get older, and life happens, you tend to have more self-doubt than self-confidence. You need to start believing yourself. And what I've realized also is surround yourself with people who will, one, always be honest with you, be truthful with you, and will support you no matter what. You know, they may not necessarily understand why you've gone through, why you've gone silent or whatever, but a true friend will always remain a true friend, and they will always be there for you. So you need to be on the lookout for such people, even if it means, and I'll go back to your childhood, to look for that childhood friend who was your diehard, you know, friend. If you're able to connect with that person, because life is short, you know. And Faith, if you didn't come into my life and make me laugh the way you make me laugh, I mean, really, I wouldn't be as cheerful as, you know, I am now. So look for that person, moment that will make you cheerful. Regarding, it was life, death, right?
And relationships, yeah. But you've talked about relationships as well.
Yeah. Wow. Death is, what I've discovered with death is that each person's experience is unique, is different. I mean, even family members will not experience the same journey. But what it has taught me, like I said, like I'd mentioned earlier, is, you know, having more grace, more patience, you know, going back and just trying to understand somebody better, you know, in terms of where they're coming from. And if you can, even going to apologize to them for not understanding where they were, or for you not being able to meet them at, you know, their time or their point of need. And it's going to happen a lot, and one shouldn't beat themselves about it. especially if you haven't gone through such loss. It's not guaranteed that you will be able to meet that person halfway, or that you'll be able to understand them. However, now that you know, and now that you know that people are talking about grief openly, boldly, don't lock yourself in a cocoon and say, hey, I didn't know that somebody can go through that, or experience such depth of grief or emotions. Just learn a little bit more about grief, because it's with us. It's around us. It surrounds us, and I'm sure many people do have friends who have lost loved ones, and just being able to be a better friend, even to support them. You don't necessarily have to say anything. And this is the thing that I say. I don't necessarily need you to say something, but just knowing that you're there, physically present, that's good enough. So don't shy away from learning about grief and learning how to help your friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is so nicely put, Sarah. And when you're talking about relationships and friendship, if you have a friend and you know them, you should also know when they're a little bit offbeat.
Of course. I mean, you knew that I was, and you gave me time.
You know their patterns, you know their behaviors, you know their temperament, you know their sassiness, and you know who they are. And so when they're all of a sudden, you say something and they're just like they're not sassy, or smart mouth, or they're just letting it go. You're like, okay, so you don't always
something's wrong.
Your friends don't always have to spell it out. Like write your book to tell you this is what's going on, A, B, C, D, with the bullet points. Sometimes you just need the cues, and you're like, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
What's going on. Yeah.
But you have that friend who doesn't read those cues, hey?
Yeah, well, a lot of cues are very loud. Or maybe let me just say it's my gift. Because I'll be reading cues. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Let's just say it's your gift.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. And when you talk about self-confidence, I'm going to just say this. When I wrote the book Confidence, it's because I had learned this, Sarah. I realized that relationships, colleagues at the workplace, a lot of the problems people have, misunderstandings, miscommunication, is because of lack of confidence. Exactly. It may sound very simplistic, and people are like, oh yeah, Faith, you wrote a book on confidence, who cares?
Yeah.
If you really dig deep, when you're around confident people, they're not easily triggered by because they're confident in who they are. They don't compete with you. There is zero competition. You could be winning every day, and they're in the season of whatever, the church, they would say the desert. They don't care, because they're like, I know my season. I know who I am. It's just a process. Being around confident people really eliminates so much of drama, confusion, miscommunication, jealousy, and no confident person. I've never met a jealous, confident person.
Thank you.
I've never met an envious, confident person. I have never met a hater who's confident. They're so busy. They know. This is why I put this together. People may be like, oh, whatever. No, I studied behaviors. I've been around a lot of different dynamics. I've studied many cultures. And I know the best people are the confident people. Yeah. They don't have to be right. Even if they're wrong, they just like, I made a mistake, because they're confident.
Yes.
They're just confident. They're like, so what? I made a mistake. I'm moving right along. Oh my God, you're a great public speaker. You're beautiful. You're this, because they're confident.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know what? They don't need to surround themselves with people who tell them that they are that.
No, no.
No. Yeah.
Mm-mm. They
Yeah.
can cheer you on without reciprocity because they don't even
Exactly.
wait for it. They're just like, I know who I am. Shush,
Yeah.
move
Yeah.
on. Yeah. They're the
Exactly.
best
Yeah.
people to be around. Confident
Okay.
people, surround
Awesome.
yourself with them. You will have such a beautiful, supportive network. I
And
promise
your
you.
and your worldview will change.
Yeah, it will because
Yeah.
they're authentic in their feedback because they're not competing with you. They will
No.
not hold back and tell you, they will tell you when you're great at something because they're not trying to be you. They won't
No.
want to mimic you because they're confident. They're confident of who they are. A lot of people will not even tell you how great you are, Sarah. They won't even
No.
compliment the book because they're not
No.
confident. When you're confident
No.
about yourself, you're
Yeah.
so busy doing you
I know,
that
right?
you show Sarah's greatness or Mary's greatness or whatever, it doesn't diminish you
No,
in
it
any way.
doesn't.
Yeah.
No.
And so I think when you mentioned that you're surrounded by self confident people, I knew for a fact that is a beautiful support network and
Yeah.
system to have.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is. It's like you said, there's no bickering. There isn't you second guessing yourself.
No.
Yeah, and it doesn't take away anything from them, like you said, when they
Yeah.
are when they are guiding you, when they are mentoring you. It takes nothing away. If anything, it adds, you
Mm-hmm.
know, to them because, and I know this because you're a mentor, you end up having to research more so that you're able to, advise better, give them, proper guidance and etc. It enriches your life and enriches your conversations and enriches, everybody around you.
Yeah, but when people are not confident, Sarah, you can give them the most incredible compliment of how beautiful, smart, intelligent, great they are, and they will not be able to receive it because they
Yeah.
think I need to be you, or
Yeah.
I don't want
Yeah.
to go too much into it because that will be a whole other
Oh,
conversation. But
yeah.
they can't even receive because they're so obsessed with trying to imitate somebody, trying to
Mm.
be something they're not, and they're not seeing their own greatness, their own
I know,
uniqueness.
right? Right?
They like I like Sarah's car, but that's not even their car that's made for them. They're more like when they tell you the things they like, I like hiking, I like this. They need a 4-wheel drive, going into but they like your Porsche or whatever car you're driving.
Yeah.
I'm just using
Yeah.
that as an example.
Yeah.
You're so focused on the other person that you forget
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
even meet your own needs.
I know, right?
And then here you
Yeah.
are, as good friends recommending, no, you need the 4-wheel drive to go into the safari, into the Masai
Yeah.
Mara.
Yeah.
Yeah, she doesn't want me to have the luxury car like her. You know what I mean? So it's also difficult to receive.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I'm not
because
saying that, we have all the answers or anything.
no, we don't.
I've been around a lot of confident people or women, men,
Mm,
doesn't matter. And I know the difference, in
mm.
the way they give you feedback, in the way
Yeah.
they share information with you, even
Yeah.
their observations. They don't
Yeah.
hold back because they really want to see you succeed.
Of course. Of course.
Mm,
They do.
mm,
They do. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's can I call it a cohort? It's a totally different cohort. It's an amazing cohort from, those who are, like you said, are not self-confident and are unable to receive any compliments, because I don't know, some even may seem to think that you are just playing around with them or playing around with their emotions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They're
Yeah.
like, what does she want from me? Nothing.
I know, right? Yeah. But I mean, but you're being genuine, Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, you even get taken aback. You're like,
It's just
you
a
know,
compliment.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, and then the unfortunate thing is that the next time they uh, come, for example, looking very smartly dressed and whatever, you keep quiet. You don't say anything. you know, because
Yeah. Of course
yeah,
you keep quiet because
yeah,
okay, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, Sarah, this has been the most one of the most enlightening conversations. It's been such a beautiful conversation. Is there anything that you'd like to share that we might not have touched on, or any parting message that you'd like to share with our audience?
So first, I'd like to say thank you for giving me this opportunity to be able to just be candid and vulnerable. And I do hope that this conversation has helped somebody or will help someone. And for me, and I've said it before, grief unashamedly, please. You know, yeah,
Like,
yeah. Don't, and unapologetically, uh, yeah, because you know what, you know what happens, Faith, is then life overtakes you, or things happen, and events happen, and you get overtaken, and a few months later, or a few years later, the repercussions of not grieving now, come back with even a greater, can I say, force than,
vengeance, yeah.
yeah, exactly, yeah, than if you had allowed yourself, time to grieve. And I know sometimes it's not always possible. You don't always get the time to do that, but it's important to
Oh,
find
but
it.
Sarah, when you don't, sorry to cut you short, when you
Yeah,
don't
no
make the
worries.
time to do that,
Yeah,
body will force you.
exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. So for me, my passing message is, please be bold, be honest about your emotions. Do not be apologetic about it. Do not be ashamed about what you're going through, about your feelings, because grief is an expression of the love that you had for your loved one. So, yeah, don't shy away from it, and don't hide it also from your children, because this is something I didn't say, but my view of what grief was growing up and what I'm currently going through, I think part of the struggles that I had was because of my view of grief, which I really didn't have much experience on. But then for me, what I saw was passive grieving. And my assumption, like I said in the beginning, was I'll grieve passively and everything will be okay. I didn't realize that there's such a thing as active healing. I had to learn that, and I'm learning that. So, depending, of course, on how old your children are, have those conversations with them, and teach them how to grieve actively. It will really, really help them tremendously as they grow older.
Yeah. Okay. So that was it for today's episode on Sisterhood Smarts. This was our smart sister, Sara AGAK OMAYA. As always, her information and her work, including all the links to her and how you can connect with her, will be in the description. So make sure to stop on, check on in, and, browse around, check out her platforms, her website, and all that good stuff, and see what piques your interest. And feel free to connect with her. I promise she is the coolest person and she will respond. So do not be shy. Write her, connect with her. She actually really, really loves to connect with people, especially, you can tell her passion with regards to grieving, healing, and, just celebrating also the people you love. And so if you have any questions or want to reach out, please feel free to do so. Of course, if it piques your interest. So that will be all for today. Thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us. You're always welcome to come back anytime, and we hope you'll come back. Until next time, goodbye.
Goodbye, and thank you so much.
Evenings come, stars a twinkle, dinner on the stove. We talk about our dreams and plans, the future we both hope.